Hello, and this is BMORE, and you are listening to the Dummies Cauldron. So today we are going to talk about the reading portion for the sun, moon, and risings for that full moon and Scorpio that we just had. I know I took a poll and said, "Hey guys, do you still want it?" Y'all said y'all wanted it, so we'll be going over some of the notes that I have. This portion for the reading it follows your rising sign. If you do not have a rising sign or don't know the rising sign, you can always reach out to me and I will try to find it for you. In order for me to find it for you, you need your birth time for me to put it in. So, not just your date of birth, not just location, but also the time. If you don't have a time for whatever reason, maybe you were born in a place where that wasn't applicable, you're going to look for your sun sign and then you're going to look for your moon sign. Again, if you don't know either of those, I will try to help you out. Okay? Good. Okay. So, this week we're really delving into the whole fixed cross thing where we're focusing on survival but really what our needs are and what we don't need, like what we should purge out of our system. And that can be hard for people because you have to really see what the necessities are in life. So we're going to break down all of the signs. So first up, we have Aries rising. So here we have Neptune, Venus, Chiron, all in the first house, and so Aries they're starting to go through this kind of transformation. They can kind of have like this mysterious kind of fog. Maybe they're feeling more spiritual. Maybe they're just confused. Um, maybe they're just trying to figure out who they are. And so we also have Venus here. Venus gives us pleasure and what we enjoy in life. And Chiron, yes, there can be wounds or issues that we're working out in our identity, but it also can be medicine. So maybe we're working through being assertive and figuring out who we are, figuring out how to just really project ourselves forward. The other part is with Aries is there is a bit of an issue sometimes with sometimes being scapegoated or being made to feel like things aren't going that well, or maybe you're the blame for something. Um, Here we find that there would be a lot of socializing, a lot of romance, more introspective urges. Now, with all of this type of soul searching kind of thing going on, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to feel the need to soul search. We also have where you want to center on your value system, and they're going to be really formed by your upbringing. I'm going to say, especially so with moon and sun placements, and particularly moon. The moon placements, because when I'm thinking about like moon and Aries, they having like upbringing issues that's surrounding like the mother, the family. Um, the sun and Aries people could have issues like around the father, compromising, getting along with people. You know, the moon and Aries people, I can also see like issues with give and take and being very hypersensitive to people, places, and things. You know, um, so trying to get into relationships with people aren't just taking so much. But a lot of these things are going to be formed on the upbringing. Money can be made through your own efforts and through self worth and self evaluation. It really just depends on how you're going to kind of go after these things and how much these things you're going to implement. Because, yes, there'll be urges to be introspective or even analyze yourself, but it doesn't necessarily mean you'll actually do it. You just have the urge to. And that is free will. So we also have it where you can identify strong with your partner or the public. We can see this show up as like teaching, sales, entertainment, or getting into politics. Work really has to give you satisfaction, especially since we're focusing on values. And if you don't enjoy the work or it doesn't give you personal satisfaction, no matter how much money you're making, it's going to be hard for you. So we can also see an uptick in volunteer services. Um, we also see just trying to grind it out. What I see also for Aries placements is this can kind of translate into work or sickness in a sense because 6 signs away is illness. So it's like we're either working very, very hard or we're getting sick, you know? So we have to kind of decide kind of have to decide what is it that we want, you know? And we have to kind of decide like if we want to work. And I think we should more so focus on work and charity because sometimes this can articulate as disease. If you feel like you could be coming down with something, try to take it as serious as possible. But this also shows up as people doing things like as a public servant or like kind of like an elected official, or even if you're like, you're at your kid's school and you somehow become like, um, I don't know, the PTA president, or like the class kind of the parents kind of elect you to do something, kind of like serving in some type of official capacity for other people. And you may or may not really get paid for it. It's just work, labor, services that we give to people into society. We also have it where money could be made through creativity. We also can see values. Money can be made through your values. So it's very important. I know it's hard to figure out where we kind of going because we're kind of like blowing in the wind a little bit, but figuring out whatever your values are can really help you make more money. Also help with self-expression because that's very important to you. And a lot of this self-expression could be intertwined with love, romance. There can also be themes around speculation, and real estate. I would tell you to just be a little bit careful with the speculation in the real estate because you do have Uranus in the second house. So that could make the money or finances be a little bit unstable. So when we're making these decisions for like decisions for deals or speculation, what I mean by speculation is like playing the stock market, the lottery, gambling, things like that. Crypto, you should just be a little bit careful because the Uranus part kind of makes it very on again, off again. Very like it's here today, gone tomorrow sometimes, or it's like lightning in the bottle. You either there and you can take advantage of it, or you can't. Think of it kind of like day trading. Like either you're up and you're up, and if you're not, you're not. And also children. So having value in children or young people, that can also make you money as well. So maybe you do volunteer work at a school, you do teaching, or you make products that are dedicated towards children or things that they would find interesting. Now, if this happens in your eighth house, so here the eighth house can bring expenses, insurance, increase in income, taxes. Sometimes it can also bring loans, audits. I would decline any money requests that sound too good to be true. This also can deal with your partner's income, their money, and having to manage their resources as well. Let's see. You also have it where friends can really give you support. Um, and you really do a lot with that support, and you do a lot with that power. So like friends, groups, organization, you can like come into power through other people's power, or like people put you into position, and you can make a lot happen. You're motivated. Maybe you're motivated to learn more about mysticism, occult religions, stuff like that. You may have an issue with pleasure. Maybe there's a need for love, or a need for desire in order for you to have sex or feel empowered. And so as long as someone feels like they need you, then you're okay with the relationship dynamic. But I really want you to understand, like, sometimes when that happens, we can open ourselves up to relationship dynamics that aren't always the best. So, okay, how can I say this in the most cool way? Undesirables, particularly undesirables who are like, they're narcissistic, they have maybe addictive behavioral personalities. They always need someone or something. Okay. So I think, again, filling this void of empowerment or gaining power, people putting you into power. So, like, for instance, if I need something from you and I have behavioral problems, I'm going to make you drive the boat. Okay. You're driving the ship, you're in charge. Because I get what I need, and then you get to feel needed like you really did something. And so this is how we get into dynamics of like enabling bad behaviors or addictive behaviors, or, weird dynamics. So this is why I brought up charity and volunteering, because I think that's a better way to give to people. They empower you to do something, or maybe you're going to run something for someone without without putting ourselves in compromising situations, also without having other people in dynamics where they're really not improving because we want to feel needed too. Because in order for things to exist, two people have to agree on the dynamic. And I know people don't want to like listen to that because people like, I think you're pushing blame. They didn't have to do that. True. However, once we learned what was happening, did we keep this going or did we say, I'm good? Yeah. And so it's more like the former than the latter. It's more like I agree to shenanigans. Is I will agree to a lot of things, even if it means that I am needed, desired. That makes me feel empowered. And so we need to figure out what our values are, so the empowerment doesn't come through any types of ways. Because anybody can need you. Need you for what though? Slippery. Y'all see how the slope is slipping? Like the slope is very, very lubricated. No diddy. Okay. So I need y'all to just figure that out. That would probably clear up a lot of drama for the Aries. The other thing is you could be more private now. Endings, death, things I like are like because death is an ending. Um, they really leave a big impression on you now, and this can be like something that happened recently, or even things that happened a long time ago. Like I don't know, like you remember your grandma passing away, and that left an impression on you, or like you even remember like your first pet passing away, like that left an impression on you, you know. And this time you could be more persuasive. Again, into spirituality, metaphysics, occult, you name it. But there can be issues with security. Maybe you want to live up to the ideals of your family. And sometimes in the attempt to live up to these things and you try to transform. The other thing is you could be handling other people's resources or getting support from others. So again, putting you into power. You could be doing like kind of politicking a little bit. So that is something that you would have to just deal with. Um, Again, you're gonna be moving into power. People feeling like they need you because remember this with the fixed signs, we're dealing with needs and desires in the sense of like what is necessary for me to keep going, what isn't. So for people with Aries placements, I would really suggest you to really think about what you need because if other people are going to already by default put you into power or like move you into leadership roles, you have to question why. Because when things go left, people usually go to the leader. They don't go to the followers typically. The other thing is there's a very sexual romanticized thing going on, and so you see sex and sexuality in a very romantic way. There's a lot of charisma. You can be acting very creative. Also kids, children, or forms of creativity really transform your life, and you make powerful changes for that to be so. So like maybe you feel like I always wanted to write a children's book, or I wanted to make children's music, or I have kids, or always wanted to do something like this project for my nieces, my nephews, whatever, my little cousins. That creates a powerful force for you, and you're able to get a lot of things done. You're enabled by this. So if it isn't romantic love or trying to go out, date, all this other stuff, there's also like the idea where there's children makes you feel empowered. Maybe you decide about whether you're going to have children or not, because sometimes people they kind of on the fence with it. Maybe you're being on the fence, but whatever the case is, it motivates you and you feel empowered by it. This also you can be empowered by creativity and socializing too. So maybe you realize what type of hobbies or interests that you have, and maybe you want to pursue those as well. Okay. Good luck, my Aries. Okay, so for my Taurus rising, um, you currently have Mercury, Uranus, and the Sun all in the first house. So that kind of like creates this. It's weird. It's like a practicalness, but an unusualness too. So like, unusual ways of thinking, Practical but persuasive and unusual. Um, while also trying to improvise too. Like, how can I be practical or find new ways to kind of like flip things around? Kind of have that going on. For the sons, this can be a lot of Taurus sons. This could be a lot of ego that goes on here. A lot of things that deal with your identity, children, father, men. For my Taurus moons, this could deal with things that deal with your mom, deal with your family and upbringing, deal with how well you communicate and get along with people. This can also make a sense of like moodiness versus the sun with suns where this all makes everyone impulsive with Taurus placements, but the sun kind of creates like a impulsiveness to like change and be different, where the moon creates an impulsiveness where I want to emotionally detach or attach, and it kind of creates, again, like I said, moodiness at its worst. The best, it can create healthy forms of emotional detachment where we can have conversations and work through things in a very practical way, you know? Um, and for the Taurus risings, they just kind of they have all of that, but it's less drama with the sun and the moons. Because the sun and the moon, they kind of add extra flair. And so like you could be for like the for instance, the suns are like more attached to their opinions, you know? For the moons, they're struggling to sometimes get along with other people. Maybe they in more arguments with other people, and particularly women, um, than usual. Or maybe they're having things around women they don't get along with. So that's the thing. So here, people are shy, but you have learned to rely on your own power. You don't need anyone else. Maybe you're in show business, or maybe you do something where you work with the public. You could be a writer, you could be a detective, something where you're kind of either moving around or there's like a hidden aspect to it. Or like you're not up front always in the public or interacting with people. You could be an ambassador, you could do PR. And being able to manipulate or move things from behind the scenes. You're also very self sufficient. And at the worst, there's a level of withdrawnness because you don't want to be bothered with people. So you pull all the way back and then you kind of cut yourself off a little bit. Um, there's public recognition. You could be good, like I said, politicking or, just, I had to meet this person, networking, make this happen. Art can show up, still be in the limelight. A partner can help your career. So maybe they set things up for you to be recognized, or they know someone, or maybe they get you a job somewhere. For harder aspects, it's almost like, and this really depends on your own personal chart. So if you experience this, there could be something else in your chart that's a bit different. Um, you feel like you have to prove yourself, and you want to do everything alone, you know. So like you want to feel like no one helped me to get here. The other thing is, sometimes with harder aspects, maybe you want your marriage to succeed, or you want like a partner to look up to, someone who is like dignified. They have a reputation that you find is very dignified. And you want to be able to look up to. Maybe those last two are a bit more neutral, but that one of like I want to do everything by myself is definitely like a hard aspect. So like if you have hard aspects with the moon, the sun, or your ascendant is being hit in a very hard way, maybe there's a hyper independence that shows up here. You too also have things we want to center around your values, and your values are really formed around experiences in your upbringing. And so maybe we're having more thoughts about how well we get along. Maybe you're having thoughts about how well you did or didn't get along with maybe your mom or your siblings or something like that. Money is usually made through your own efforts. Self worth and self evaluation are the key. But again, it depends on if you're able to do this at the time. Oh, I also will say if you hear any crinkling or shuffling, that's just me looking at my papers. But it really just depends. So self value and what you value and evaluation will be a benefit to you now. Creativity and writing, being close to children or dealing with children, and sometimes the worst spoiling children, but socializing. This can also show up for lovers, like, and I mean non-committal lovers. We're having romantic partners, but it doesn't mean like we're together like that, you know? But yeah, even spoiling partners, um, spoiling children, creativity, writing, these types of things. We also center around parental influences. Real estate that could be earned through the family. So if you're not talking about like the family home, you're maybe thinking about the impacts of how your family or how your parents raised you. There can be rewards, like I said before, there could be rewards through your own efforts. You can be in the limelight. But the problem is because it's through your own efforts and you have to work very hard to achieve things. Maybe there's an ego that shows up. Like I did this. I put my foot into this. So I had worked, really hard to get this or blah blah blah. And maybe we don't respect things that are easy. Because remember, you already have it where your partner can help your career and kind of like put you on, you know? So we have to really like examine that, you know? Because just because something is harder doesn't mean it's smarter. I know we can recognize hard work, but sometimes hard work is also like challenging ourselves in our experiences or what we think we know, our knowledge too, because wisdom is through experience. So just because we've had an experience or we have to challenge our intelligence, I think that would be the best way to say. And that's just book smarts. Just because we're working harder doesn't mean it's the best thing, because if you have people who love you and they support you and they want to see you put on top, why am I working harder? Now, if you want to have something that you prove to yourself, fine. But I think going back to what we talked about earlier with self evaluation and what we need versus what we want and having to give up things and realize what we have to keep. I think we should examine the journey and how we go through the journey and the goals. So maybe you're also used to your partners doing everything for you, and maybe you haven't learned any skills, and maybe you realize like I'm not really enjoying something. You know, I want to enjoy it more by being more hands on. That's maybe a bit different versus I want to work very hard for something. I have resources at my hands, but maybe I'm not using them or I'm not being as practical as possible. Because remember, Taurus is practical at its core. It wants to be practical. So just think about it. The other thing, there's a need for appreciation and approval from others. So although you want to work hard and you want to prove something to yourself, there's also a thing where there's a like a egotism that could develop, but also there's a people pleasing or like approval process that we want to get from others. And sometimes when this isn't properly understood, we can show it can show up as like competition, arguments, issues getting along with people. So again, like I said, try evaluation and figure out what the issue is. Like really how we're going to get through things and what is the need, what is the want, you know? The other thing is this is great for sales, mediation, PR work. You're a people person that people like, which is great. Which is why we really don't have to argue or have so much disagreement. You're never alone. This also can show up as like early marriages or getting into relationships quite quickly. But I would say with some hard aspects, this also can be constant upsets. So there could be a need to try to stay single or you want to stay single, you know, because of such destabilization in your relationship. Because to be fair, the moon is in Scorpio and Scorpio is not the strongest placement. It's stronger in Taurus, you know. This is happening in your seventh house, this full moon. So we have to learn how to compromise. We have to listen to others. People can oppose your plans, and you really could take it personal at this time. Like you really could take it personal. Um, there are also agreements, marriage, engagements, contracts that can be delayed too at this time. So try to. This is where the self reliance of like I need to just put this up on the board by myself. That part will be great, But also, like I said, there's still people who want to help you, and there's still people that may want to be of assistance to you, and you have to just for kind of like navigate that. There can be exchanging of ideas and opinions. And because this is such a hard placement, maybe these ideas and opinions are influenced by other people. And so this can further push us into, you know, networking, politics, or having to persuade people, you know. But figuring out what our opinions are too, our own thoughts. There can be security through partnership. This can show up as like marrying late or not at all. And maybe this shows up as being content with parents or being just content at home by yourself, especially with all of these relationship problems showing up for people who have it a bit harder with the relationship aspects, or maybe they don't have as much easier aspects in their own personal charts. You may get into situations where you deny marriage or deny partnerships, maybe due to duty or personal responsibilities, or maybe your parents are demanding and they're creating dynamics where maybe they're filling in the placement of a partner. So your everyday is you trying to help or navigate with your parent versus with a partner, whether it's in business, whether it's romantic or otherwise. Maybe you can have things that take you far away from home, far away from your partner, and maybe you have a partner who maintains the home or runs the in the background and offers you support. And again, depending on if you have a supportive partner and you're not taking in help as much as you can, or you kind of don't really have as much help. Again, all of this really depends on, these are blanket to some extent, and your own personal chart kind of interacts with this as well. So for some people, they may have responsibilities for their parents and their family, and that's keeping them from dating, or maybe maybe it keeps them from holding up their obligations to other relationships, which can create this strain. For other people, they're choosing not to have any relationships, any commitments. It's just me, myself, and I don't want to be bothered with that. And again, all of that is really centered on what you need versus what you want, and why the self evaluation that we talked about. Why are we doing these things? It's the main thing. So there's a need to be yourself. You need time alone, your own little corner, your private place. You are a homebody. You work from home and you take care of parents. Maybe there's foreign travel or relocation, or there's an interest in foreign travel or relocation. So the other thing is, for these people, they like to be at home. They like to be cozy. They like seclusion. They like things that are basically familiar. So they're creatures of habits. And so this can also shape their relationships with other people. So regardless if you realize, like, you know what, I really need a partner is going to support me and take me to the next level. Or you know what, I'm just happy it's me, my mom, and my dog. I'm good. Whatever it is, like I said, for the Taurus, you guys are really going to be going through your dynamics with other people and relationships, and also how your family raised you and your family dynamics, and how that also impacts your relationships with other people. Whether you keep relationships, you don't, whether you tap into them or don't. Okay? Good luck, Taurus. All right, for my Geminis. Right now, for Gemini, Jupiter is in the first house. So we can have an uptick of luck. We have an uptick of growth, abundance. Sometimes certain principles, we're getting more religious, we're getting more duties. Maybe we're seeing things where maybe we're a husband or we're getting a husband because Jupiter can be the husband. Um, Dealing with creativity, maybe our health is improving. But Jupiter isn't always it's not the strongest in Gemini, because Gemini to some extent is subjective, and it's also not as elitist as Jupiter. Jupiter is very elitist. Like, it has us, it's like the upper echelons, and now it's kind of coming to something that's very common, like Gemini. So that also comes in there too. Now for the Sun Gemini people, maybe we're seeing things where we're very attached to our egos and our identity. Maybe we're not open to other people's viewpoints. And maybe we're not being as detail oriented. There's a lot of information coming at us now. Things are coming as quickly, and we can be overwhelmed. but it's not like we're being detail oriented also. So there's an overstimulation and also almost like a level of apathy. And Saturn, because the way Saturn impacts Gemini right now, there's a strong possibility where maybe you get rejected or you have to work within your limitations while trying to grow. And that is a major thing. Okay. That could be a little bit hard to do. Now, for the moon and Jupiter people, well, moon in Gemini sitting by Jupiter, this can show up as, a few things. One, having big emotions and having to deal with them. Maybe we want to share things with our family, be more caring, or even spending or indulging more. But try to spend more time with people than money. They're going to have memories longer than they'll have whatever item you get them, you know? The other thing is sometimes with the moon and Jupiter, when they make certain placements and they're together, sometimes we're getting movable or changeable morals. Our morals aren't as tight as we think they are. So, what I think or what I thought was my beliefs, because Dharma is Jupiter, and Jupiter is the also seen as law, the duty. And this depends on where you are. So, the Dharma or duty or laws of the US is different if you are somewhere else. And so, maybe they're getting looser or maybe they're changing. And so maybe that can get us into a little bit of trouble, particularly for the Gemini moons. Maybe you feel like you're overwhelmed and no one is there to help you, you know? Now for the suns, maybe you're tired, you don't have as much energy. Maybe that's issues with your father. You have to work very hard for everything, you know? But it's good to put up the work and be disciplined because that'll pay off later. This is just a transit, it'll move on. But if we cut too many corners, sometimes the corners collapse in. So if we're building a house and you got four corners, sometimes we're cutting too many corners trying to be slick and clever. Sometimes the house doesn't stay up. So it's best to lay a good foundation than to have your efforts be in vain. The other thing I'll say, just because you get rejected from somewhere, it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. All right? Okay. So here for Gemini, you guys want rewards to be through your own efforts. You want to be in the limelight. At worst, this can give you bad ego. So you want to work hard, you want to put yourself out there, that's great. But just because you work hard for something doesn't mean you're more or less deserving. Hard work doesn't mean that you're more deserving than other people. A lot of people work hard. It doesn't always mean that it's going to materialize how you think it is. Okay? We work hard because you want things to be done in the right order, not because you think you deserve something else. It's really the reward that you think you're working hard for. That's subjective. Things might not work out. So, like, prime example, someone wants to lose weight, right? Maybe they're trying all these diets, they're working hard. It doesn't mean they are more or less deserving of weight loss. It just means what they're doing didn't work. They worked very hard and they were dutiful and disciplined, which is great. But that didn't work. So just because you work hard, it doesn't mean, oh, I worked hard on this diet, I should have lost 10 pounds by now. We know that's not how the world works. Sometimes you really apply yourself and it just didn't work. Almost doesn't count, you know? So that happens. That's applicable here too. The other thing is there is a strong desire to identify with your partner and the public. This can show up as teaching, sales, entertainment, politics, networking. So maybe you want to be with your partner and work or do something public with them. Maybe you want to have one-on-one conversations with other people, but you really want to connect with other people, which is a very Gemini thing. The other thing is you're more funny now. You're more witty now because the sun would be in your 12th house. So the sun is in Taurus. That's your 12th house. So you're more funnier. The other thing, sometimes this humor or funniness can be centering around tragedy, or maybe you have some type of tragedy or sad story involving your siblings or distant relatives or neighbors, or early childhood experiences. The other thing is you maybe want to communicate from behind the scenes, particularly of a powerful mate. So remember we talked about before how you want to connect with your mate, you want to connect with your partner, whether it is romantic partner, business partner, but maybe you want to be behind the scenes, talking to them, pulling the strings, whatever. This can show up as ghostwriters or people writing under non diploms or, different names. Um, this can show up as acting, directing. Maybe you're doing choreography, but there's an act of self expression that wants to come out, but in a more reserved way. And there's a high level of tact and diplomacy. We can also see themes around hospitals too, whether you work at a hospital, maybe you want to volunteer at a hospital, maybe you end up unfortunately going to a hospital. But this shows up. Now, here we have a hidden inner strength because this is a 12th house, and the 12th house is so crazy. Let me just be honest. So, Taurus is your 12th house. There's a hidden inner strength, but there's also a secret. There's secrets that you may have that you just don't share. So, this can be maybe insecurities. And sometimes these insecurities can lead to health issues, which kind of puts you in the hospital anyway. Um, Sometimes we have issues or certain things as a way to escape our problems, whether it's like addictions, sickness, illness. Also, home is really important to you. You need a place to call your home where you could just unwind, recharge, all of that. Having a secluded, private place where you could just relax. This also shows up as, like I said before, with the whole hidden inner strength and stuff, a hidden identity, something people don't know. Not the best, like I said, it's like I write under a different name, non diploom. But the other thing is, maybe there's a version of yourself that you never told anyone. You know, this also shows up as secrets in upbringing or even drug issues. I know that sounds really extreme. I know like the drugs, blah, blah, blah. But again, the 12th house is really split because sometimes it's isolation, it's the spiritual answer, but sometimes it's also our undoing or like something just really crazy. It also deals with fantasies. So there's hidden fantasies or hidden identities or hidden themes that we don't share openly. So we have hidden fantasies we don't tell people. And these show up as like secrets, you know? This full moon happens in your sixth house. So your work environment is linked to your well being. Maybe there's an uptick of gossip, rumors, attempts for someone to try to sabotage or play the blame game with you. I really would keep information to yourself. There's a earnings through work, but maybe this isn't your final career. So I'll give an example. Maybe career wise, maybe you do real estate or you work on commission, but that doesn't always pay the bills. So if you don't close any deals, you don't get no commission, you don't take any money home. So maybe you work maybe like a clerical or managerial position in between to pay your bills. You know, again, you're earning money, but it may or may not be your final career. Again, your values show up based on service or the work that you do. And sometimes this type of work or services can be health related, hygiene, nutrition, sixth house related things. We also see this as like politicians because some politicians feel like they're serving the public. So being elected officials. So like if you show up to something as a group activity and someone makes you in charge of the group activity, this can kind of show up as like being elected by the people because you're like, especially if you feel like you're serving someone on their behalf. The other thing is you could spend a lot of money on pets. You spend a lot of money on pets, hygiene, upkeep, diets, and you value them. And so you're valuing eating right, taking care of yourself, and you kind of want to go in that direction. You also can work for the media. There can be communications. Typically, with some of these placements, particularly since like Mars is three signs from its point. So Mars is like in Leo, and its home is Scorpio and Aries. Usually, siblings will assist you, or you can work with them. But because Mars is a malefic, there's a high chance that you may not get along with your siblings, and there could be a lot of um, arguments and contention. This also deals with commuting, transportation, art, your desires. What do you actually want? Meals, just eating, being talkative, or just bad habits. Sometimes it can just, even if it's not bad habits, you're having a hard time establishing good habits. Like, I don't, maybe my habits are like kind of like meh, but I'm having a hard time establishing them. Or even if I don't have like really, really bad habits, me trying to start or like launch is really hard right now. And I have to figure out what do I need to do to really make this work. So, like for instance, we talked about better hygiene, health, pets. Okay, you want to take better care of yourself, but the habits are hard to establish, and maybe we're setting ourselves up for failure. So that's something you should just think about. Like, how can you make your life easier for these habits? You could also wait to the next cycle and try again, or wait till Mars leaves Leo. But again, the habits nonetheless are still very hard to establish. The other thing is you could be communicating a lot with your employees or with subordinates or with competitors. You also have it here with friends and people you see every day. You guys kind of become close. Or better yet, the best way I can say it is like people you see every day end up becoming your friends or you become friendly. Again, there could be issues with siblings. Maybe your siblings are anemic or they're enemies to you. You also have it where you want to be in charge. You want to get in maybe into something like being in the limelight or being front and center. Forms of leadership. There's a strong desire for recognition, which can possibly lead you into scandal. So you need to pay attention to, although there's like a really strong desire to like work and put yourself out there. You need to understand like although being in your career and establish yourself is important, you don't want to be so thirsty that you get yourself into trouble. The other thing is there's a more reserved, shy ability. Again, we talked about having this polarity with like wanting to be in the limelight, but there's a shyness. Maybe you have to learn to rely on your own power. Again, this can show up as themes like far as in like being in the limelight or entertainment, show business. Maybe you're a writer, maybe you're a detective, ambassador, you're doing PR. But you're basically being able to manipulate from behind the scenes. You're able to move things around. And this is really important to you now, especially since you want to work with your partner in certain forms of capacity. You know, you want to have something with the public. You really want to work on being self-sufficient. You just have to realize like what you desire is self-sufficiency, not to be kind of like an egotistical brat. And that is easy to snowball out of control. And I think between that and establishing good habits, you should kind of figure out how to do that properly. Because it's those are sometimes being misunderstood is very easy and it can easily get away from us. Especially Gemini since they like to talk and they like to interact with people. So there's an easier way to also just be clocked, you know, and some of the clocking um can get us into a world of trouble. So realize like the desire is to establish yourself and to be self sufficient, not to be a brat. Also, you want to work with your partner. You want to establish healthy regimes. You want to establish good health, etc. You also want to be a power player behind the scenes that no one sees. Now, at the worst, Gemini, which I know this is going to sound really weird because it's kind of almost out of character for you. Um, there is a good chance where you could go so hard that you can withdraw out of the limelight in society, even though you want to be seen at the same time. So it kind of creates this like push and pull that doesn't make any sense. There's also this thing where we want to be a globetrotter. We want to interact with different people from different places, people with different customs, cultures, religions. And maybe we want to be what I call like a map maker, something where we want to show people the way. Whether it's like philosophy, religion, you want to show people the way how to navigate through things, you know? There's also a strong sense of ambition around travel. So, as far as in globe trotting and moving around, maybe you set yourself up for a trip. There's also be ambitions in the art and communication and meals. There can be also a strong dedication to pursuing your goals and your desires. The only thing with desires can be tricky because unlike goals where we have to set up habits and things, desires don't have to have regulation or structure. So it's easy for us to get tunnel vision, to get desperate, and to do things that maybe we wouldn't necessarily do. You know, it's very easy for that. And people are less likely to do that with goals than desires. Not saying it's impossible for people to like kind of like get a little weird with goals and then kind of like go like Game of Thrones on you. But people who have desires and they're very desperate, they have tunnel vision, they're more likely to do it. Someone who sets a goal, they usually are more strategic and they understand. I guess what I'm trying to say, they understand their limits. Gemini, you're struggling with understanding what your limits are. You can't do everything all the time. Or maybe you can't do all the things you want to right now. And that's probably why you're having a hard time setting up these goals or setting up these habits of yours. So you need to understand what your desires are, what your limits are, and then you make your plan. One, you want to be self sufficient, so that's fine. But what are you working with right now for all of this? Okay, if you can get that together, you're gonna be fine, Gemini. Good luck. Alrighty, for my Cancer risings, your values are going to be really linked with your friendships or people that you socialize with, groups, older siblings, all of that. This also can, your values can also be impacted by failure in social settings. So the love that you receive really impacts your self worth. Income can come through the influence of friends or acquaintances, older siblings, or from businesses that you have established on your own. You really need to find what your desires are. Or this really can prove difficult to tap into the resources that you're looking for. You know? So it's hard to make money if you don't know what you're working with. And sometimes you look to other people to establish that for you, which can make it even harder. Their values aren't your values. How they think about money, resources, and stuff, that's not the same as you. Everyone's different. And so maybe we're looking for sources of help to help with our money, our income too. But you really have to understand who you are and what you're working with. And one thing about cancers, they're very tricky because they make more money once they have good self esteem. I also noticed too, when you guys don't have anything, you're very humble. When you step up into something, you're very obnoxious. You're very obnoxious. And particularly like Cancer sons, too obnoxious. Act like you've been somewhere, please. Because when you didn't have nothing, you was humble. Now you have something, It's getting creepy. You acting like your butt don't stink. So for cancers and for people with cancer placements, because your second house is Leo, you make money on how you identify. You make money on your self esteem. You can make money with children. You can also make money with men. But your self esteem is number one. If you can't look yourself in the mirror and have confidence in your identity, whatever they are, whatever you look like, race, color, creed, religion, whatever it is, you are going to struggle. That's number one. You are going to struggle. All right. Now, this is happening in your fifth house. So there can be satisfaction from children, romance, sports, and creativity, overall leisure activities. Children can end up needing extra attention. So can lovers. People can upset social plans, cause issues in romance, and there could be conflicts with your friends at this time. Socializing, romance, and kids are very important to you right now because the moon is in your fifth house and your first house lord goes to your fifth. So you're going to be very much so interested in this. You're also more talkative now. But there's also still a reservedness, a shyness. Maybe you're trying to figure out what your own strengths are, how you can move through the world, learning to rely on your own power. You could be in show business, you could be a writer, you could be a detective, ambassador, you could do PR. But you're trying to manipulate things from behind the scenes at this moment. But you have to be careful in your desire to be self sufficient. You aren't withdrawing from other people. There can be power and money right now. And this can be through gambling, speculation. And by speculation, I mean stock market, stuff like that. There can also be a lot of fun and a daring attitude. There can also be strong sexual connotations and also a desire to be mentally free. Now, I will say for cancer placements that have it hard or have hard aspects here, this can be the opposite. So, where you're not mentally free, you're not having fun, you're not sexually daring, you're not having good dynamics with money, you're actually having the opposite. You're like really oppressed. Um, the genitals is not working, they're dry, you're not daring, the money is dry too. And maybe we're having issues with children, you know. The children thing is it's a little funny, you know, which is interesting because you can make a lot of money from your creativity and you can make a lot of money from your values. So, like I said, understanding your values, understanding your self esteem, and tapping into your self worth, you can make a lot of income. There can be also income in forms of self expression and wanting to expand yourself. And this can be really intertwined into your love life, your romantic life, and forms of speculation. So maybe you go out and you gamble, maybe you can have a lucky streak. And I'm saying this as a blanketed statement because people can have unique things in their charts that kind of like it's not as cut and dry as this, particularly for people with hard placements. But yeah, you could be gambling, speculation, real estate. Also be dealing with things with kids. Overall, you can make money from your career. Now, I know I said earlier that cancers are going to be having problems. Yes, that is true. However, this full moon is not that bad. Long as you don't have any hard placements in cancer that can make it hard for you to navigate, like Saturn in cancer is not the strongest. So maybe some of these things are going to be a little bit harder for you to pull off, you know. For other people, they're gonna be making money and having fun. For the other cancers, all right. Good luck, cancers. Have fun, but not too much fun. Alrighty, for my Leos. Leos, Mars is in the first house. And so here, if you're a Leo sun or moon, for the sun people, again, very stuck in their opinion, very aggressive. For the moon people, very irritated by everything in life. Good for teamwork if you channel it properly. The sun people, sun Leo people, um, try not to rush around and do stuff because y'all can be accident prone at this time. All right. You guys are really trapped in by your own philosophy, either trapped or you're fascinated, and you really want to share this with other people. This can lead towards education, teaching, sports, law, or sometimes you can be a lawbreaker. So you could be a little bad boy or a little bad girl and you starting all this trouble. The other thing is your upbringing really takes self-centered. So it's really centering your parental influences. Maybe you get real estate or property through your parents at this time. You want to be in charge. You're fascinated by politics, acting, entertainment industry. You are interested in leadership roles. And you need recognition, and this recognition can lead to scandal for you. Your parents play a central or a pivotal role. So either they're helping you or either you're reminiscing on your upbringing. And because the full moon is happening in your fourth house, family, home life really are centered at this point. This can be a relocation, or you really trying to identify with your security needs and what you feel like you need. This can also bring you back to childhood experiences, dynamics with the mother, or having a home versus career issue. Bless you. There's also a strong need to be yourself. And you need time alone in your own little corner to just decompress. And privacy is very important. You're a homebody now. You want to work from home. You may even be taking care of your parents, or you're doing a lot of foreign travel, or you have to, like I said before, relocate the home. Teaching others, sports, entertainment, politics, again, very, very, very important. And so you're interacting with people from different places, different viewpoints. The last thing, partnerships, relationships, whether business or otherwise, romantic, dealing with the public are very much so important for your security. At the worst, with harder aspects, you really want to be independent. And so there's a dynamic where you're in a very public display, like your private life, everything is out in the public, like the openness here. Whether it's by choice or maybe your upbringing, maybe you come from a culture where everyone is open like that. But the thing is, you also need privacy, so this can create a complication. It also feels like a few people understand you at this time, or really what goes on in secret with you, you know. So it's very interesting. Leos are pretty much cut dry. You guys are kind of doing your own things. You have your own beliefs. You're really tied to your own beliefs. Um, but also it's a push and pull between being public and being private. Like you need a lot of privacy, but at the same time, you live a very public life and you want to interact with people, and you will have to try to figure out what your needs and wants are and establish how much publicity you need right now, or how much public interactions with other people you need, how much home private things you need. And then I think also too the childhood stuff, and maybe having home issues where maybe you have to move, something's going on, the kids are crying, mom needs your help, dad, he need help getting into his lazy boy. All of that can be a bit overwhelming and stimulating. So good luck, Leo. Alrighty. So for my Virgos, you have K2 in Virgo right now, and it's sitting in your first house. And so here, sometimes you're prone to headaches. There could be wealth that could be obtained. And by wealth, I want y'all to understand sometimes in astrology, wealth isn't just always physical, material wealth. Sometimes it's being a happy person, being raised by people who love you, having like a good education, good upbringing. Like that's seen as wealth. So just keep that in mind. But yes, a strong constitution. Um, but there may be some health problems and maybe some issues in relationships, marriage, and partnerships. We also have themes where we can identify strong with a partner or the public. Maybe this shows up as teaching, doing sales, entertainment, politics, networking, and stuff. We also have it where self expression is very important to us. And maybe this shows up as like politics, themes with siblings, friends, distant relatives, travel, working with our hands, or just talking about yourself in general. Maybe you feel like you haven't talked about yourself enough or express yourself. And that really is what it stems from. The other thing is you're a dreamer, and if the dreams are possible, maybe you should go for them. Long as they're feasible and nothing like too delusional, which is it'll be very kind of hard to do for a Virgo, but who knows? But long as it's very tangible, try to go for them. This also centers around philosophy, romance. You're happy, you're hopeful, optimistic, and there's an aspiration to you. With difficult planets in Virgo, um, they kind of block this out. So there's a little less happiness thing going on. This also deals with travel and legalities. Um, I also would say for the moon and Virgo people, maybe there's an emotional detachment because K2 is here. And for the sun and Virgo people, there's almost like a humility that kind of takes people away, or there's like a separation from the parents for both the sun and the moon. Like maybe there's a separation that goes on between the parents um, as well. There's also a mixed philosophy. There's like these different types of belief, in the sense of like your ego is intertwined with the philosophy. So like your beliefs become who you are, I guess. Like, you kind of wearing it a little bit like a costume. And there's rarely compromise here. There's a strong placement where you could teach in the field that you are well versed in, or in something you had previous success in. You also can do publications. So maybe you write a book or anything. Publications can also deal with social media. So maybe you end up posting or writing something on social media. You do music. That's also publications. In the third house, because that's where the full moon is, this is unfavorable for travel, although there's a strong desire for travel. This is a bit harder for in laws, education, dealing with siblings, neighbors, meals, um, desires, art. Be careful about what is written and what is said. It can be easily misinterpreted or not received. There can be legal matters stalled and emotional thinking at this time. There's also a thing where there's like a subconscious religious theme or subconscious philosophy that also can possibly become your undoing. See, there's a funniness about you now, but there's also tragedy sometimes involving siblings or friends um, that can pop up as well. Um, Maybe you also want to communicate from behind the scenes. of powerful partners, whether romantic or otherwise. There's also ghost riders. This can also be dealing with acting and directing, choreography, and overall wanting to express yourself. There's also dealing with tech, diplomacy, and hospitals, whether you're visiting one, whether you're going to one, you work there, whatever the case. There can be issues sometimes of a sexual nature. There can be aggression and enemies that can't be vulnerable. The opposite can also happen as well, but it usually can show up as a secret affair or secret partnership or rendezvous. Rendezvous. Sometimes there can be too much emphasis put here on these themes that we mentioned earlier. A lot of times there's deep feelings of internal changes, hospitals, foreigners, institutions, secret enemies, bedroom pleasures. Sometimes there's a fear of death or things being over. Others' resources are available to you now. So other people give you the power, whether it's like they give you money, backing, support, whatever. But there's you want to kind of keep it under wraps. There can also be the theme of secret weapons kind of showing up here. The other thing is you could bore people with talks of your job, diet, or habits. This can also be slander from competitors, or you can get into competitions. Work can bring joy. You may work with siblings or friends or some competitors. They can be travel, poor health, short work. So the work is not long, the work is just short and impactful, or short services. But sometimes you're not satisfied with the work that you've done. Because Key 2 is also in Virgo, there can be injury to the childhood or education or speech, intellect, commerce, vocation, adaptability. Maybe we get opposition to these themes as well. So opposition to speech, intellect, commerce, and this can even show up as arguing as well. We also see themes of death or trying to negate something, knowledge being here, liberation, or psychic or spiritual insights. All right. Overall, Virgo, it seems like, work is very important to you, and so is your personal philosophy. Um, but really just watch what you say and what you write when dealing with these themes. Because these are like a lot of deep themes, and maybe you also pull up with a lot of ops too. So trying to examine your feelings, examine your deep thoughts, but it seems like you could also get into a lot of stuff with people during this time. All right. Good luck. All right. Now for my Libras. Currently, you need a lot of appreciation and approval from others. This can sometimes show up as competition, arguments, and issues with getting along. You can be in sales, you could be a mediator, you could do PR. You overall are a people person who is well liked, and you're never alone. This can be an early marriage or partnership, but sometimes this can show up as a issue with constant upsets. So maybe there's a desire to stay single. You also have it where you can be a workaholic. These themes are centered around diet and health and hygiene. You're either very neat at this time or you're very messy. You can get into sports or you can be a creature of habit. They also can be sickness. I really would suggest because your first house lord goes into the sixth, which is kind of like this combo for ill health. If you work a lot, it would deter a lot of that. Okay, you work a lot, you do your services, you give to people, maybe you donate. It would deter a lot of that. This is happening in your second house. So your security is linked to your money and your finances, also your values, your immediate family, and your voice. I would suggest you to watch your spending and your words and expenses. There could be a delay in income. I'll also use this time to financially plan at this time as well. There's also a possibility to make a lot of money in your career. How much really depends on the second house and the quality of those planets there. You also have it where friendship and partnership are important. There's a give and take. You maybe want to be friends with your partner. Partnering with groups, or you team up with organizations or a sibling. There can be income or money earned from these partnerships and contracts. You could be attracted to someone with children or someone who is creative or social. Then on the flip side, you can be a loner, independent, and being in competition right now. And because of this, your values are also linked to these friends, these organizations, these partnerships, or particularly the success of them or the failure of these social situations. So your value is like how well you can get along, you can navigate all this other stuff. Love received can impact your self worth. Income can come through the influence of friends, acquaintances, or older siblings, or from a business that you establish by yourself, or you own your own business. You need to really figure out what your desires are because it could prove difficult to really understand what resources you have and how to use them. Writing, acting, and creativity makes money, especially with dealing with themes around your voice, your immediate family, your sense of values, romance, socializing, children. Money also can be made via speculation and investing. There can also be a theme of frenemies. So I really would tell Libras to watch who they partner with or who they're friends with. There can be inheritance issues, sometimes by a friend or by older siblings, where someone could try to uproot you from your social position. You can be a victim of gossip. These friends, quote unquote, can sometimes be important in seeking support from them in intimacy, and especially since friends are also really tied to your self worth right now. The love you receive, you kind of are like dependent on, how can I say this? The type of love or interaction you receive really determines also the quality of sex you have. And maybe we're having sex with people who are our friends, which could be a good or a bad thing, depending how messy we're being. Also, these can be untimely accidents or even death. I'm not saying Libra, y'all are going to die or something like that. That's not what I'm saying. But there can be more harder accidents or things that can happen. Okay. Doesn't mean that you're going to do that, but you can, on the light end, you could just get into an accident. All right. And for the Libra suns, the sun is already pretty hard in Libra, but here we're getting into uncompromising situations with people. Um, Maybe we have to work very hard for everything that we have. Okay. The other thing is maybe our effort to put ourselves out in the limelight has been really paying off. And we're also tapping into our own leadership and personal power. Now, the other thing is for the sons, it could be a little bit harder with dealing with ego and getting along with people at this time, and making friends. For the moon Libra people, maybe there's give and take issues in relationships. Maybe there's isolation. Maybe you feel alone, like you don't have anyone on your side. There's also a kind of like a gung ho teamwork kind of energy that you kind of feel at this time. Um, the other thing is maybe this is a good time for you to examine behaviors or just even physical items that you need to get rid of to improve. All right. Good luck, my Libras. Alrighty, for my Scorpios. So for my Scorpio people, Libra is in your first house. Not Libra, Lord. For my Scorpio people, Lilith is in your first house, and so is the moon. Now, here for moon people with moon or Scorpio people, um, y'all kind of already used to the moon and Scorpio, but it can be even more so when dealing with issues of emotions, habits, family issues. Even dealing with the public or women, sometimes it can seem like this is more drama, or it can be a bit more harder for you to process. For the Sun people, maybe there could be some issues of ego, but also figuring out what your needs are. And sometimes this can create some life issues. That also can be forms of rejection from mom, dad, women, men, children, depending on what you have. Particularly if it's a son, you're dealing with men, children, um, father, self esteem, trying to figure out who you are and authenticity. Also, career. For the moon, this could deal with home, family, meals, habits, women, public, having issues with that. Sometimes even reproductive issues. Now, here, you are also caught up in your own philosophy, much like Leo. You want to share that philosophy with other people. So this can push you into education, teaching, sports, law, or you can be a rule breaker. You can be a law breaker. You're doing your own thing. You're very self motivated at this time, self interested. This can show up as ego. Again, watch it. You know, being self motivated, interested isn't bad. But again, when we get into too much ego, we can catch ourselves up. Particularly, especially, I'm gonna say the Leo sons. And the Leo sons, the Scorpio sons. Um, you also are appearance driven, so maybe you want to give yourself a makeover. You're conscious about the way you look. You also are centered on what your wishes are, your ideas. You want to create your own conditions. You are happy with family, or you overcome the behavioral problems that stem from your family, and then you're happy. And that really depends on, again, easy or hard aspects for Scorpio. You're either already happy, so like a Scorpio moon, maybe y'all are looking more harder, but maybe it's a Mars and Scorpio. You're already happy, and if you're not happy, you'll work through your issues and then you become happy. This also deals with sports, being in the public, being in a career or some type of work where you're partnered with someone. Your partner plays a role in your career. Also, one to one relationships or one to one professions. Think like a therapist. They're having one to one conversations with people. There's a give and take here. And maybe there's a give and take with your partnerships or a give and take with whoever's facilitating this role. And then, again, this is dealing with maybe sales, something that's, like I said, public, like you're out interacting with other people. Family matters take a role or take center stage at this time. You are maybe attached to a parent, maybe it's your mom. Um, Either this was love, a loving relationship with your family, or during this time for my Scorpios, maybe you're learning how to have a family dynamic. You're learning to get along with people, how to be wholesome, how to like have that whole sitcom thing kind of go on. Maybe you follow in your parents' footsteps. Home is security now for you. And maybe you make wherever you go home. You want to take charge now, especially Scorpios always want to take charge of their career, but especially now. You want to be in charge. You're the center stage for politics, acting, entertainment, leadership, anything. But I would say be careful with your need for recognition because it can lead to scandal. You don't always have to be first. You don't always have to run out there, guns blazing, all of that. Take your time. Also, parents and home and family are really important to you at this time. Here, also, work is your career, and basically what you do daily also leads or help your career. This can bring satisfaction. Also, your habits can maybe be recognized or something that you do every day, especially if you have Mars in Scorpio or there's a strong Mars placement. So timing is everything. Like you almost have like athletic timing is off the charts. Here you also can have where parents can try to pressure you to work harder or to work for free to pennies on the dollar. Or they try to choose the work or your career for you. But remember, you wanted to be in charge, Scorpio, so this can be a problem. Maybe you don't see eye to eye and you do not get along with your parents because of this, especially during these transits. Um, for you in this leadership role, this is great, but really pay attention to gossip because at times this placement is funny, but at times even when listening to the gossip, instead of like conforming to the critiques, it actually makes you want to usurp expectations. So like you kind of do your own thing. Like you get even more crazy, you get even more wild, you go the other way. So this full moon happens in your first house. So this deals with emotional satisfaction and mutual relationships. And because of that, either some relationships end at this time, um, whether because your needs were not met at all, or you were just unrealistic out the gate. Like it just made no sense. Um, it is not the best time for negotiations or big decisions because there's an overall lack of cooperation. Sometimes from you, sometimes from other people. You know, but this I would really suggest for you to, because there's a whole thing of you kind of like locked in and you like me, let's get it, but you're also really attached to like working with family, working with partners. I would really suggest you to just like make sure you have an open line of communication. I actually think y'all can get a lot of stuff done right now, Scorpio, but if the if there's a lack of mutual understanding, it's going to be hard to kind of work in partnership with people and all this other stuff. It's going to be hard. You want to get the recognition, but everything has to be moving like smoothly. We can't be doing all of this and everything is just crazy and chaotic. The other thing is, I know for a fact you're not trying to work for free, so or be told what to do. So I know with some of these antics of people trying to tell you what to do, have you work for free and stuff things that you would not just you're not interested in. Um, we have to understand that we're not having a mutual relationship, and I'm good. And for Scorpios, I would actually suggest y'all to go 6 months back from May, maybe sometime around November, and really try to examine where your relationships were at the time. And if some of this is just a hangover of nonsense from last year. But for Scorpio, I would really try to put up what your needs are and what you're trying to go after, your what your goals are, and who you running with to make this happen, because you do want to do this with other people. You want to be locked in. So we have to be realistic about who it is we're trying to do this stuff with. And are they a hindrance or not? Maybe y'all just don't have the same vision anymore. I don't know. But you need to figure that out. All right? Good luck, Scorpio. Okay, for my Sag rising. Right now you need a lot of appreciation and approval from others. At its worst, when it is not facilitated properly, this can create a lot of competition, arguments, and issues getting along with people. You can be interested in sales, doing mediation, work, and stuff like that. You are a people person and you're well liked. You're never alone. This can also show up with like quick partnerships, marriages. But sometimes with some of these harder placements, this can also show up as getting upset and not really getting along with people. Especially like with the moon, and if you have a moon Sag person, you probably not getting along with people. You probably beefing right now. Sun Sag people probably not as detail oriented. Probably think they're right about everything right now. It's a strong possibility because the ego is involved. So it's issues getting along with people. Partnerships and relationships, business, public are important for security. People with harder placements, maybe you want to push for independence. So maybe if you have a Mercury and Sag, maybe you are pushing to be more independent. Maybe if you have a Saturn, Sagittarius, independence. Um, maybe you also are in the public by choice or by heritage. So maybe you have a public career. Maybe you interact with the public a lot, or this is like a cultural norm for you. Few people understand you or what goes on in secret or what goes on with you. Your everyday philosophy is practical, or your everyday religion is very comfortable. Sometimes you're even funny. So a lot of these themes can deal with father, your dad. It can deal with teaching, being a lecturer. There's also work that's connected with foreigners and traveling, and maybe you do like imports or something like that. The other thing is there could be issues of a sexual nature. It could be aggression, enemies. There's a strong feeling of like you can't be vulnerable. The opposite can happen as well. Again, it depends on what you have in your personal chart. But this can also show up as secret affairs. Sometimes you can put too much emphasis here on these themes that I brought up earlier too, like enemies, vulnerability, sex, etc. These deep feelings can also trigger internal changes. We also see things of hospitals, foreigners, institutions, secret enemies, and bedroom pleasures pop up. There can also be a fear of death or endings. You also can be able to obtain other people's resources and they're available to you at this time. So maybe people, they sponsor you, they give you money, they promote you somewhere, they make you the face of something. Um, you really want to keep it under wraps too. You also see the themes of secret weapons. This is happening in your 12th house, Sag. And so there's a lot of rumor, gossip, hidden matters, secret enemies. Be mindful of medications and chemicals. Get rest and relax. Someone can also show up ill right now, and maybe they go to the hospital, maybe they don't. The other thing is, you can have a demanding job where people put their duties onto you. Try to use your intuition and your subconscious to tap into this stuff. There's also powerful energy around trying to communicate your inner feelings. This can show up as writing. There can be sensitivity. And this sensitivity helps others to communicate also with you. So think maybe like how therapists, they're receptive and then people talk to them. There can also be a lot of behind the scenes manipulations and secrets that come to the light. Overall, Sag, y'all have a lot of secrets and things that y'all don't want no one to know, but somehow the secrets come out anyway. I don't know what's going on with y'all. Like hidden secret love affairs. I don't know if y'all cheating with people's husbands or what's going on, but Sag got a lot going on. Good luck, Sag. Alrighty. So for Capricorn rising and suns and moons, um, we're dealing with a couple of things. So for my Capricorns, I'm gonna say for the suns and moons, oof, y'all can be more sensitive at this time. Both of you, sun and moon. Okay. The rising also can be sensitive too, but I'm gonna put extra emphasis on sun and moon. The suns can be maybe recognized for something they done at work. Um, the moon may be very sensitive. They might be getting like psychic visions if y'all are even having those. But y'all very sensitive to people, places, things around you. For the moons, maybe y'all are how can I say this? Y'all need to understand what being selfish is. They need to understand like a give and take situation. Maybe you're with takers, maybe you're a giver. Maybe you're giving out of insecurity, maybe they're taking and maybe you're a taker. You need to understand that like this is a lot going on. um while also like trying to be apathetic emotionally, like you're sensitive, you're apathetic, you're ego centered. This is a weird combo. I'm gonna be real. I'm gonna be real. Like y'all being weird, and it's not because I hate Capricorns. It's just a weird combo. It is. um Maybe the sun, people are also feeling positive forms of the sun. So maybe you get a promotion, you get recognized for something in your career at work. I would say with Uranus being in Taurus over these past few years, maybe we're making hopefully practical and positive changes. I hope you have been. That placement has been there since 2019, 18ish. Making practical improvements to liberate yourself and maybe create some freedom. Um Mercury here, maybe we're more curious, we're open to learning. We want to figure out how the world works. Maybe we're also getting better with talking to people when we're doing more public speaking. And so communication and sharing ideas are very important right now. There are strong views you want to express. So travel can be also good for your career. This also dealing with themes with siblings, maybe even getting some delays in education, delays in speech, delays in writing, but you're still funny though. Sometimes you make jokes and like you're the butt of your own jokes. Maybe we're also seeing things around your desires, art, competitors, and meals. So we also see that family matters are important. Maybe you're very attached to your parent, most likely your mom at this time. Um, we also see a few things. Either we're getting strong love and support from the family, the mother, and your upbringing, and we're at home, or we're learning how to get love and support. We're learning how to have good home environments, how to get along with people at home. The other thing is maybe you want to follow in your parents' footsteps. Home and security are everything to you right now. And wherever you are, you turn it into your home. Other thing is there's a thing where we're getting romantic and sexual at the same time. There could be a lot of charisma. This can be acting, creativity. Maybe you deal with children, but they're powerful transformations that you make for romance. They're powerful transformations that you make for creativity. Sometimes you change for your children. You know, it's very strong. This is also happening in your 11th house. So friendships may be on the line right now for Capricorn. Maybe your friend asks too much of you in the way of favors. Um, Maybe they put too much responsibility on you. But there can be clashes with friends, groups, the internet, older siblings, issues with romantic partners. Just responsibilities can be just overwhelming altogether. Bless you. Friendships and partnerships are everything, and you want to be friends with people you partner with. And you need to learn give and take in relationships, and they do too. There's a desire to partner with groups, organizations, siblings. There could be money earned from these partnerships and contracts, and you could be attracted to someone with children who's creative and social. You could be a loner, you could be independent. There's also competition that also shows up here as well. You're a private person. Um, Death or some whether it's current or in the past or some type of ending had a strong impression on you. So whether it's like your pet died, your granddad died, whatever, it leaves a strong impression on you. You can be more persuasive now. Maybe you want to get into more spirituality, metaphysics, occultism. There could be issues with security, trying to live up to your family's ideals and their expectations. And really overall trying to make this attempt to transform, but it's hard. And so you may also have to deal with handling other people's resources. You can get support from other people, and you may even become like the face of something, politician, or like having to serve groups or something like that. There's also a strong connotation right now for Capricorn. Um, you can have some frenemies right now. Sometimes you can get inheritance by way of friends or older siblings, or you can be uprooted from your social position due to gossip. Um, Friends are important, so you can try to seek support and intimacy from them. Um, Depending on how you receive love will also depend on how great the quality of your sexual life is. And maybe you are having sex with your friend group. None of my business, but There can also be untimely accidents and also untimely death. Again, I'm not saying I'm expecting Capricorn to just check up out of here. Sometimes it's just accidents, or sometimes we're impacted by untimely deaths of people that we already interacted with. Hence like the pet grandpa. So just put that on for a swing. Um, this is the death can be present or in the future. So for the accidents and everything, like just take it easy. I'm not saying you want to check up out of here, but take it easy. I would also like to say, in order for people to typically get inheritances, someone isn't here anymore. Just so we're clear. Not saying I'm expecting someone to check up out of here, but typically that's how it goes. So yeah. Um, the other thing is you can go into a business with a friend, older sibling, or groups. You can earn via groups or organizations. The other flip side, if this is like aspected in your chart very interesting in an interesting way, sometimes you're just unemployed, which is very hard for me to imagine a Capricorn unemployed. But moving on, there can be values based on others. So maybe we use groups or the siblings, friends to create the value system for us. And we really need to learn our own values. What do we value versus what they care about, what they value? We also see themes around us being caught up with the government or possibly a parent. All right. Good luck, Capricorn. Okay. For my Aquariuses. So you are going to have Pluto in your first house. Now for the moon Aquarius people, this kind of is centering around controlling people, manipulation, controlling women, public, family, and if you are the person that's controlling like this, get it together. But if you see anyone difficult, get the heck out of there. I would say the same thing for the same as the sun in Aquarius, having to deal with controlling people, but it kind of ramps up with the moon. I think the moon, you also should deal with um any emotions or physical items that you do not need anymore. And for the sun, I think you should really tap into your leadership skills, but be careful of like ruthlessness. You may be like the aim of someone's ruthlessness, but you may also tap into ruthlessness yourself and being manipulative and troublemaking. You know, now the troublemaking, manipulation, and power hungriness is also just Aquarius signs, period. But yeah, at this time, Aquarius, you want rewards through your own efforts. You want to be in the limelight, but I would really suggest you to be mindful of not turning into a freaking jerk, because there is a strong connotation that you put yourself in the limelight, and then you have all this ego because it's like, I did this, I did that, and you feel like, you have something to prove a little bit. Also, family matters are very important. You could be attached to a parent. It may be your mom. Maybe you feel like you have love and support from your parent, or maybe you're learning. Maybe you didn't grow up with that, and maybe you're learning how to have those dynamics with people. Um, you may be following in the footsteps of your parents. Home insecurity is very important, and wherever you go, you kind of turn it into home. The other thing is you pick up on your own value. You make your own value system. You try to figure out what is right for you. Maybe you're unconventional. It's pretty on brand for Aquarius. Um, you also center around money talk. So how can I make money? What kind of deals coming on your table? That's very front and center for you. You also will tell Aquarius to really think back on how they grew up and what their upbringing was like around money. You can also work in the monetary field. If you don't have any hard aspects kind of going on right here, everything is smooth. Everything is smooth, so you can make money very easily. Um, if you have something hard, like Jupiter kind of has some issues in Aquarius, and Rahu kind of home and crazy, but there sometimes can be some struggles in the lack of values, wasting talents. Sometimes it's hard to kind of close the deal on the money tip. The other thing is there's a strong desire to exchange ideas and opinions with other people. But sometimes, if there are too many hard placements, there is a thing where people can try to overly influence your ideas, um, whether it's like something political or not, and there could be strong levels of persuasion. The other thing we see is you want to be either public or partnered in your career with someone. Sometimes it's your who you with, your boyfriend, your husband, or sometimes it's someone else. Um, Whoever this partner is, they play a significant role in your career. There's also a strong desire to have one-on-one relationships or like a one-on-one profession, like a therapist, like they're talking directly to somebody. There's a lot of give and take, and this could be really good for sales. This is happening in your 10th house, so a lot of your satisfaction comes from work. Job change is possible. But there's also extra responsibilities, sometimes from your parents, government, children, something you created, in general, social events. There's a strong career versus home type of theme that goes on, and this creates conflict. We also can see issues around home ownership and rentals. We also see that work is career, so it's something that you do every day. You don't have to have another gig to cover for work. But this brings a lot of satisfaction. Your habits can also get you recognized, and your timing may almost be magnificent or just like perfect, almost like athletic. It really depends also if we have some Mars placements that are pretty strong. Parents also can sometimes pressure you to work harder or work for free to pennies on the dollar, or they try to choose your work or career for you. There's a strong leadership role, but really try to pay attention to gossip. And the more you pay attention, which is very interesting, the more you kind of like subvert expectations. So like the more you pay attention to gossip, the more you do the opposite. Which all together. But that is pretty much it, Aquarius. Good luck. Okay, for my Pisces, last but not least, here you have Rahu and Saturn in your first house. So for Pisces Sun and Rahu kind of makes almost like either sickness, troublemaking, also some psychic disturbances. For Moon and Pisces, this also caused some troublemaking, also a little bit of crazy behavior too. The Sun and Saturn people sometimes they have to the not the Sun and Saturn, the Sun Pisces people, they sometimes feel like they have to work very hard. But again, at the end of the day, because you're working very hard, you get rewarded for the work that you've done. Maybe it's not now, maybe it's in the future, but nonetheless. The Moon Pisces people, maybe you feel like you out on your own and it's just you grinding, try not to think that way. Most of the time that's not realistic. Most of the time you have people that actually care and they're interested. Um they're interested in what you have to say or what's going on with you. All right. Now, Pisces, we have very strong introspective urges. It doesn't mean you're actually going to tap into them, but the urge to be introspective is there. Also, friendships, earnings, and older siblings are important. You're very oriented. Sometimes you're so goal oriented, you kind of like rush into hell, like you rush into wild places, and you probably should just take it easy and kind of be a little bit more meticulous. Sometimes earlier life paths or earlier life goals or dreams kind of resurface. So maybe something you always wanted to do as a child, or you just was always fascinated. But there's a strong thing where you can like, because there's like these strong um energy to like just go get it and be like a go getter. You can also run over other people and you can step on toes. So learn some tact. Um, there's also desire to also close your eyes to bullshit or things that are clockably off. Don't do that. You know, watch out for fair weather friends. Watch out for people that they're riding with you just because you're up right now. Because a lot of times they can oftentimes mislead you. It's not always what you think. The other thing is you really want to pick and choose your own values right now. and what is right for you. This can also show up as unconventional themes. You also are interested in money talk, so you're having conversations about finances, deals, etc. I would tell you to examine your financial upbringing. So, how were you raised, and how was money treated when you grew up? You could also be in the monetary field. This can be smooth as long as we do not have any malefics here. Rahu is here, so but this can overall be smooth. If not, if you have hard planets here, maybe you're having struggles with money. There can also be a lack of values or wasting talent in general. I know someone's gonna say, "Well, how can you tell if you have hard placements? If they're exactly what I read. If you're struggling to make money, there's a lack of values. Like you don't have any standards. You don't have any, like for instance, like I don't believe in stealing, or I don't believe in lying. Whatever your values are, you don't have any of that. That shows up here. Also, a wasting of talents. Like you're good at something, but you're not necessarily using it to make money. Then you're not gonna have any money because you need to understand what your resources are. So that's another thing. Let's see. Family matters are very important to you, so you can be attached to your parent, probably your mom. And a lot of times this shows up as having love and support in your upbringing. But if you didn't, you're learning how to do that. You're learning how to present a happy family dynamic. You also can follow your parents' footsteps. This also deals with home and security. And wherever you go, you tend to make it your home. Right now, work and media are very important to you in communications. Siblings can assist you, or or they can work with you. Um, commuting and transportation are important. So as art, desires, meals, you can be talkative. Also see that you either have bad habits or it's hard to establish or basically like start a habit, even if you don't have too many bad habits or you're not trying to have bad habits. It could be hard to just get them off the ground. You also can be communicating with employees a lot at this time. This full moon is going to happen in your ninth house. So you're going to have issues with the law, with your in laws, traveling. Sometimes they're delayed and canceled. You also see themes around the father. I would really suggest you to watch any promises you make, watch any legal disputes, religion and spirituality and philosophy. Not saying that you can't be religious or have any of those. Maybe you use those as something that makes you feel better and more content. Maybe sometimes it could be issues with it. So maybe you're trying to travel to a religious event and you cannot make it. Maybe you make a promise and they don't keep it. Or maybe someone, at your church makes a promise and they don't keep it. You know, that's what that could mean. There's also a strong desire to travel for pleasure, create or participate in creative literature. Learning is fun at this time, but so is teaching. Sports are entertaining. Religion and philosophy is entertaining. And so is themes around the father. We also get earnings through work, but the work might not be your final career. So maybe you do something that's a commission based job, but you don't get paid unless you lock in a commission. So then you take up like a clerical job to cover your bills. Your values are also based on your service and work. And sometimes these services can be health, hygiene, nutrition, or even like politician. Or when I say politician, like someone elects you to serve or help someone else and you agree to it. The politicians get voted in and they serve the public. You also can spend a lot of money on pets or positive routines or health, which is a bit hard right now because you really want to set up positive routines. But again, it's hard because you just can't get the habits up off the ground. It's not you, it's the transits. But I would suggest you to go over where maybe you have vulnerabilities or where maybe you could be more strategic and giving yourself the success you need to establish these healthy habits you want. You want to be in better shape, you want to take better care of yourself, etc. Figure out where you can shapen up a little bit. Um, what else? We also see that your everyday philosophy or your religion is comfortable or just practical. You can also have funny ways that you talk about philosophy and religion as well. This also centers around themes with father, teaching, lecturing. You also deal with work that deals with importing or dealing with foreigners or travel in general. Philosophy is also based on your own feeling and self conviction. So also experiences that you've had. So maybe you tell jokes or you talk about your experiences with God or your own personal interactions, or like maybe you have a funny kind of like spiritual joke to tell. A lot of times you don't want others to shape your beliefs. You know, maybe you are into writing, research, or medical themes. Self doubt can also be a thing. Um, Maybe there's also a strong push to self analyze yourself through therapy and having to deal with emotional and spiritual beliefs or identity issues. So maybe you go to therapy to try to work out your emotions, your spiritual beliefs, identity in general. You're more hidden and reserved now. Maybe you travel a lot. You learn about metaphysics, the occult, and this also helps you to learn about life. Because you have Kate, you have Rahu and Pisces. This is linked to disease, sometimes issues with diseases, dealing with the husband, teacher, also duties and principle, wealth, fortune, grace, children. Sometimes it shows up as psychic disturbances, collective trends, epidemics. Sometimes we take shortcuts, there's deception, or we're just overall confused. On the positive end, we can have a lot of spiritual growth and deal with fantasy. I will say fantasy could be a form of escapism, but on the negative end, it's escapism. But yeah, that is pretty much it, Pisces. That's it, y'all. All right. I know this was only like maybe a week for y'all to kind of like lock all of this in. But you know, y'all voted, y'all said y'all wanted it. So here you go. You know, good luck. Y'all stay safe. And goodbye.